Hey everyone, if you want to make your own podcast but you don't know where to begin, Spotify for Podcasters makes it super easy. They've got everything in one place, it's totally free, and you can make money while doing it. Here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start doing it today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and pretty much everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also supported, and you can even conduct polls and Q&As. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, the platform is totally free. No catch, totally free. When I wanted to start my own podcast, I did not know where to begin, and I didn't think it was even possible. And Spotify for Podcasters made it happen. They made it easy, they made it quick, and I am doing something that I love. What more can I ask for? So if you're interested in starting your own show, you can do it, and I highly recommend you give this a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Everything Kratom, the podcast about anything and everything Kratom. Great to have you with us on this Tuesday morning. Hoping all is well with you as always. I'm doing pretty well myself. Kind of gearing up for Thanksgiving and, just kind of going into hibernation mode. It's winter. I know it's not officially winter, but for me, it's winter. So today I wanted to talk about a few different experiences I've had taking Kratom while on LSD. And I want to start by being very clear. I'm not condoning this in any way. I'm not suggesting anyone should do this. I'm never suggesting or saying anyone should or even think about using Kratom, let alone any other substance, or combining Kratom with other substances. So let's just get that out of the way, right away, shall we? So now that that's out of the way, cool. Let's jump in. So these experiences took place a number of years ago. At that time, it's worth noting, I did not have much experience with Kratom yet. I don't think I really knew about many types of Kratom or had many types at that time, probably just like 3 or 4 at most, probably more like 3. And I definitely was dabbling in other things that, college students dabble in. Not necessarily something that I should have been doing, but I did. So let's start with the first time. I was extremely curious of what this would be like. The first time that I had taken Kratom while on LSD is actually I had taken Kratom before taking LSD. I had taken some sort of green, and I want to say it was green Bali, and very, very shortly afterwards, I was walking along, strolling campus on a beautiful sunny day, and a friend of mine ran into me. And you can probably just guess the rest of the story yourself. They offered to give me some LSD and we would have a fun day together. And I said, heck yeah. So we did it. And I guess, if I'm trying to really be clear, I think it was maybe 15 minutes after I'd taken Green Bali. And if I'm trying to remember amounts, I probably took 4 grams of Green Bali, which is more than I should take, but I've done other episodes where I explain that it took me a while to realize that I needed less. So I took a little bit more than I should, knowing, in retrospect what I should take, but that's what I did. So 15 minutes later, I took LSD, and at that point, I had taken LSD a few times before, so I kind of, I understood how it was going to work and how long it took to actually really, to break through, to peak, to get into the real jive, And so for me, it usually took 2 hours or something like that. With the Green Bali, I think the first thing that I noticed is that it took a lot longer to get towards that breakthrough moment that anyone who has used LSD in the past would understand. And it wasn't as, it was kind of anticlimactic, I guess I would say. It was drawn out more. And unlike other experiences that I had had up to that point with LSD, as I was, in the first 2 hours of it building, I always felt really, really weird and kind of had some anxiety. that was like almost gone. I mean, the weirdness was somewhat there, but it wasn't that bad. And my anxiety was like next to nothing. So I'd say that it was like really, for me, it was like really beneficial, or I appreciated the fact that it dampened the I guess the anxiety part of like taking a psychedelic substance, or at least the beginning stages of the LSD trip for me. But it also made it more drawn out and last longer, and I didn't like that. And it kind of made the trip a lot less of a trip. It was a lot less intense. And I wasn't necessarily seeking out intensity that day, because I wasn't even seeking out LSD that day. But since I had taken it, that's what I had expected. So it kind of just like lowered the level of everything. Not necessarily a bad thing, but not necessarily a good thing. And then I think that other than that, the rest of the day was pretty much normal. That was my first experience with it. The second time that I had this combination, it was a lot later, and I don't think that I had taken Kratom beforehand because of that first experience, and I didn't like how long it took for the LSD to really take effect for me. So I know that I intentionally did not take Kratom to begin with. However, what I was interested in was trying Kratom once I had already, gotten into the middle of a trip. So once I had taken the LSD the second time, and like it was a few hours later, and kind of like midway through the day, I took Kratom again, and it was a different type, and I want to say it was white Sumatra. It's hard to remember, but I really only knew about like 3 or 4 types, so I think it really was white Sumatra, and I think again it was probably like 4 grams. And that time, what I noticed was that things got really strange. Like it was interesting. It made the world look really much weird. I was gonna say it made the world look really weird, but it's like I was on LSD. I mean, things were wacky already, right? But it made it more weird, more wacky. It made visuals much more intense and last longer. And I also kind of like developed this red hue and blue hue that was behind everything, which wasn't there beforehand. And I think it was directly, a result of taking the white Sumatra. The other aspect of it, which is kind of surprising to me because it made everything look so weird and kind of like warped things more than before, it also kind of made my mind a little more clear. It made it so that my mind wasn't like running off in directions I didn't want it to run off in. For those of you who don't know kind of like what I'm talking about when it comes to using LSD or other psychedelic experiences, sometimes you can kind of like start thinking about something and get off track. Like you can actually like start thinking about something so much so that, or at least in my experience, I like start seeing that thing and then I'm like thinking about something else, and it's like in the meantime, I'm standing there looking like an idiot, not saying or, not talking, not looking like I'm present. And, my mind is just kind of off in another place. And it's because like I'm literally not there. That sort of thing can happen. And it can happen somewhat against my will if I don't stop it, that doesn't happen all the time. It's just if it's pretty like intense, if it's a very intense time. So I don't like it when that happens. And taking the Kratom mid-trip definitely helped prevent that sort of thing from happening. It didn't change the fact that I was thinking about things very differently or more vividly, but what it did do was keep me grounded. It kind of kept me on Earth. And I think that was the first time where I really like truly, definitely, and mentally acknowledged that I was benefiting from the Kratom while on LSD. Because even though I really like the trip and the weirdness of psychedelics, or, at least I used to, I haven't done it in a long time, probably never will again. But even though I enjoyed that aspect of it, I didn't like it when my brain, hopped out of my own head and went for a walk and said, I'll be back later. I always hated that. So it was kind of like, it was neat because I realized that it was a really helpful tool in keeping myself on the ground and present, but not taking all of the effects of the experience away. So I thought that was really neat, and I definitely remembered that for a long time afterwards. And I think I did this a few times where I would take Kratom mid-trip for the purpose of keeping myself on the ground, but I think I took less later on, and it worked really well for me. The last experience I'm thinking about is when I took Kratom towards the end of a trip. It had been a very long day. I won't go through everything that I did, but for anybody who has taken psychedelics in the past, I'll just tell you, I found God, then realized he wasn't there anymore. I found an answer to all of life's problems, and then I lost that too. And I saw an ice cube melting on a breadboard, and it was a real crisis. I'm telling you right now, it was a real crisis. That's for all of you out there who've tripped. Okay, so anyway, the last time that I did this, it was a long day. It'd been 8-10 hours, and on the coming down from LSD, I don't have a particularly hard time, but it can be a lot. I definitely feel very drained. I feel like all the nutrients and vitamins have been sucked out of my body and I just feel like a blob, and I, slowly feel more like a blob throughout the evening or nighttime, or, whenever it is that I'm coming down from LSD. And I really hate that feeling, and it's not too bad, but I always try to avoid it if I can. And I decided to try Kratom again, intentionally, to see if it would alleviate some of those symptoms of coming down from LSD. And so I took, and I know for a fact of this one, I took red Thai. And I had only been using red Thai for a little while, but at that point I had recently discovered red Thai and really enjoyed it. And it was the only red variety of Kratom that I actually used. And that's kind of similar to today, actually. And so I decided to take red Thai, and I took, I'd say 3 to 3.5 grams, but I can't remember specifically, but it was more than 2 or 2.5, and it was definitely less than 4. I think it was 3 or 3.5 grams. And I immediately, within a minute or two, what I think was a minute or two, who knows how long it was? That's the other thing. Who knows the duration of these stories? You just have to throw time out the window, because I'm probably not the best source of information for how long it had been at that point. But I think that it was just a couple minutes. And I really quickly felt calm, but not just calm. It was sereneness. It was kind of like the red Thai helped me conclude that trip and that experience. It wrapped it all up in a box with gift wrap paper and a bow and tied it up nicely and said, here you go. It was end of day, end of experience. And it was nice. It was calming. It was a little bit euphoric, and it was it brought back some of the visuals that I was having earlier that day, which had been gone for the most part for a few hours. But it also didn't kick up the trip again. It brought some visuals, but it also definitely suppressed most of the other aspects of what LSD does to me. And it helped me land back to earth, and it also tired me out and made me feel like I could actually go to sleep. And I still had trouble going to sleep, as one does often when they're taking this sort of thing. But I definitely got to sleep a lot easier than I probably would have otherwise, because it made me actually feel tired, which I felt drained, but drained isn't the same thing as tired. It made me actually feel okay, I think I'm ready for bed. And that was really valuable to me too. I would be remiss if I don't actually mention one other thing, which is that another time, and I don't remember any of the specifics around this other than it was the end of another trip, and it was maybe a year or two later, I took another type of Kratom, and I don't know what it was, but I think it was maybe green Thai, and probably about the same amount as the red Thai, 3.5 grams towards the end of a trip, and it gave me a really, really bad stomach ache. My stomach hurt really badly. I wonder in retrospect if it's because I hadn't eaten anything in so long that day. It probably didn't agree with my stomach. And I think that is probably the main reason why it happened, but I don't know. And I'm sure that it could be attributed to other things as well. But it made my stomach hurt. It gave me a little bit of a headache. It wasn't pounding, but it was definitely there. I definitely got a headache from it. And I wish that I had not taken it. Like right afterwards, I realized, I really shouldn't have done that. I wish that I hadn't taken this because I was really like enjoying the day and I was kind of finishing off the experience. But now it's like I have to deal with a stomach ache and my head hurts. And it didn't really do anything for me other than that. So I think that's worth noting too. There can be, at least in my experience, I've had some not so okay experiences with Kratom and LSD. And then I've had some experiences where the Kratom really played a great role with LSD. And I would, think about that again if I were to ever do it again. But like I said, I think those days for me are over. But it was really interesting, and I don't hear too much about it, although I do see some experiences online, like I mentioned. And I don't know much about the science behind it. I would be fascinated to learn about that. I mean, the fact that we don't know about Kratom itself 100% through and through, of course we don't know about how it's going to affect an LSD trip and how that sort of effect will take place. Also, we don't even know everything or nearly everything about how LSD affects us. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole, right? So introducing Kratom into that is just like adding to the rabbit hole. Anyway, I hope you all found these experiences interesting. Again, I don't share them to condone this combination or to suggest anyone should or should take Kratom or should take LSD or take the two together. But I thought I'd throw the experiences out there just to help educate those who are interested in looking into it and just add one more story. So there's my story. All right, everybody, we will be back tomorrow. And wow, 2 days from Thanksgiving. Woo woo. Looking forward to it. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.